Welcome back to the MovieBabble Podcast. This week you've got myself, Collin, and I'm joined as usual by Nick and Brennan. And this week we're talking about the opening weekend for Stuber and Crawl. And please remember you can always check us out online at MovieBabbleReviews.com. So this week's top 5, we've got Spider-Man Far From Home in first, again with 45.3 million. No real surprise there, followed by Toy Story 4 in the number 2 spot with 20.665 million domestic. Number 3 spot is Crawl, opening up to 12 million domestic, followed by Stuber in the number 4 spot at 8.043 million domestic, and Yesterday rounds out the top 5 with 6.75 million domestic. So it's not really a surprising week. Everything is kind of playing out as predicted. Spider-Man is on its way to becoming the highest grossing Spider-Man movie. It's pretty close right now. It's sitting at about $847 million worldwide. Spider-Man 3 is currently the highest grossing, and that is just around $890 million. So I think Far From Home will overtake that here in the next few weeks. And as we talked about last week, it's definitely going to be a $1 billion movie at this point.
For sure. I think that this film's continuing success is a sign that the MCU is not slowing down post-Endgame. We're probably not going to see something to the magnitude of Endgame for a long time still to come, but I think that this just proves that they have so much might, so much heavy pull in terms of box office worldwide, even because this film's just jumping up like crazy. And I didn't expect it to have a massive second weekend, just considering the fact that it did come out midweek. So I think 45 million domestically in your second weekend for a film that premiered on a Tuesday or Wednesday, midweek, whatever it was, that's pretty good. It's pretty solid, and I think they're pretty happy with those numbers heading into some heavy competition with The Lion King next weekend.
Yeah, that drop is actually a really solid number for this movie. It's 51.1%. As you mentioned, for a movie that opened like early in the week, that's really good. That signs a really strong hold, especially because it was a holiday weekend. But yeah, it's Far From Home it's gonna probably break over $1 billion in like the next like week or two. I'd probably give that over under like a solid like 10 and a half days. It'll probably break that number. So yeah, it's just a really solid opening. It's kind of funny. You just really see off the coattails of Endgame, people were excited to see what's coming next, and we're now in a post Endgame MCU, and they're probably positioning Tom Holland and Spider-Man to be the lead of that. I mean, we'll see what happens with negotiations moving forward with the Spider-Man character between Sony and Marvel. But yeah, this is just really solid for them. It's really good numbers.
Yeah, and I think it kind of resembles how the first Avengers really bled into all the other movies. So you had Iron Man 3 grossed, I think, around 1.3 billion the year after the first Avengers came out, and Thor: The Dark World grossed like twice what Thor the original movie had grossed, and I think we're just seeing that hype kind of bleed over in the same fashion.
Yeah, and this is why Marvel is so great, and how they've kind of just revolutionized just movies and storytelling, where the two, or probably the biggest thing coming out of Spider-Man Far From Home was holy shit, J.K. Simmons is back as J. Jonah Jameson, and it immediately gets you excited for the next movie. Like, people were more excited talking about what's going to happen in, I guess, what's going to be the second Spider-Man 3. They're more excited talking about what's coming than the movie itself, which I think is just really fascinating. Like, Marvel just continuously creates this machine where you really enjoyed the movie that just came, but you even get more excited for what's coming because they have those little stingers. They're just better at that than anybody else. So, yeah, this isn't going to stop anytime soon. They're so good at this. It's like they're doing it in their sleep at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like even Endgame, like it had some pretty definitive endings, but it leaves the door wide open. Spider-Man kind of forces that door open even more, and they're gonna get ready to announce a lot of the upcoming slate for the Marvel Universe here in the next month or so. Once D23 comes around, so I think we're just gonna see even more of this hype bleed into next year as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have quite a long time till the next one. It's Elementals come out next fall, I think it is. It's slated around there, and I have no idea what to expect from that movie. That's going to be really fascinating. Millie Bobby Brown is in there. Angelina Jolie is in there too. That's going to be a wacky movie. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to also the Black Widow prequel next year as well. Because we're pretty big names attached to that project. So I thought it was kind of bold to at this point kill her off in Endgame and then have a prequel for her. But I guess that's kind of cool that she gets kind of her own movie to kind of say goodbye with her character and her kind of the legacy with the MCU, Scarlett Johansson. So I'm looking forward to see the film just because of the cast behind it and kind of what it means for the MCU and for her. But I thought it was an interesting choice to have this movie come out post her death.
Yeah, and I think, they're also getting into some, more of their offshoot characters here in the next couple of years. So, Shang-Chi is their next solo debut, which is, a pretty lesser-known superhero, and, a kind of risky thing to go with, but you look at, they built the MCU off of Thor and Iron Man, who were pretty much C-list characters until then. So I have no doubt we're going to have, these characters nobody's heard of before that are just going to pop up and be Iron Man level status here in the next couple of years.
And that's the thing too. I think that this franchise, what they've been able to do, and not even just the MCU under Disney and this kind of last 11 years, but just Marvel in general, even dating back to the original Raimi Spider-Man, what they've been able to do is introduce us time and time again to new, odd, out there superheroes that the general public doesn't really know about. And they make it fresh, they make people excited about it, and they make them normal. I think when the first Ant-Man came out, I was kind of shaking my head. I was scratching my head. I was like, what? Ant-Man? What is this? I see it. It's a fun movie. It's a fine movie. Now Ant-Man is pretty normal. It's a pretty normal superhero. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, was probably the biggest step that the MCU took in kind of showing that they can literally turn anything into a massive hit. So yeah, I think they'll be fine from here on out. But it's interesting because people say, you know what, the Iron Mans of the world are gone, Captain America gone. We've done a lot of these other big heroes. What can they do from this point on? And that's when I say a lot of the heroes that they started out with really weren't high-profile superheroes. So I have full confidence that they're going to turn them into normal mainstream heroes. Everyone's going to know about them. Everyone's going to love them. And then we'll be saying, don't you guys, don't the kids these days, why don't they remember Iron Man? So there you go.
Yeah, it's at this point you're in a movie theater, and I've actually heard this many times where you're just seeing a movie and it's regular old crowd, and a trailer shows up and has that Marvel logo on it, and you hear people like, well, shit, I guess I gotta go see that movie. So they've created this TV way of storytelling that they've done, and just makes it necessary for everyone to go see every movie, and the machine just keeps turning and turning. So it's not stopping anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll kind of wrap up Spider-Man from there and go on to Toy Story. So Toy Story 4 is at its fourth week at the box office and is still pulling in pretty consistent numbers. I think it'll take a bit of a dip this coming week just with some more Disney competition coming in. But overall, 20.6 million in week 4 is still pretty solid for the domestic haul. And we're kind of seeing no evidence of Toy Story 4 really slowing down in any significant manner at this point.
Yeah, it's holding really well from week to week, and this is kind of what I posited when it first came out. And the opening number was solid. It was the highest ever in Toy Story history, but all of us just kind of expected it to just pop a little more than it did. But yeah, it's holding really well from week to week. This week was sub 40% drop, and right now it's the fifth highest domestic Pixar movie ever, and it's only 10 million behind Inside Out, so it's gonna surpass that soon, and it's about 70 million behind Toy Story 3 to become the highest grossing Toy Story movie domestically. So it'll probably get close to that one and probably eke past it. So yeah, it's doing great, and it's good to see it. It's a really lovely movie, and yeah, it's awesome. Good for them.
Kind of looking at the worldwide numbers, $771 million worldwide. This is a huge film. And I don't quite know what the ceiling is for this thing. I think that we can. I don't know. Are you guys ready to rule out $1 billion? It's at 771 right now.
I'm not ready to rule it out. This movie is really just holding on, and I don't know. I mean, I think 900 million is definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I can definitely agree with that. It'll be interesting to see how it performs overseas, because it looks like it does have a pretty strong hold from week to week here domestically. But with the Lion King coming out next weekend, it might change things a little bit. Who knows? But it's looking great, and it's a huge success yet again.
Yeah, I'm not ready to rule out $1 billion just because we don't really know how the Lion King's going to go, and I mean we'll touch on this next week, obviously, but it hasn't had the best early reviews, but at the same time, it's the Lion King with Childish Gambino and Beyonce. I mean, like it has a lot going for it. So I think if the Lion King is just a massive $1 billion hit, I don't think Toy Story 4 will be. But if the Lion King kind of falls short, I think Toy Story 4 will pick up a lot of that audience and a lot of that slack and just keep going with kind of the same legs we've seen on it now.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, we've kind of seen a lackluster Disney live action movie already come out this year, and it was Aladdin, and that movie's done crazy numbers too. So you never know. Member Berries just might pull us through here, and it might become another just crazy hit with Lion King. So yeah, it's all going back to Disney in the end. So what does it matter? But it's just, yeah, it's definitely something worth checking out in future weeks, because I mean, it's holding really well and people love it. So it's like, yeah, it's Toy Story 4. It's great. Like, people are going to go back and see it time and time again. So we'll see this one. I think we're going to see this one in the top 5 for at least a couple more weeks.
And just quickly touching on Aladdin as well. That's a film that's fast approaching $1 billion. As you said, it's kind of the surprise hit. 960 million worldwide. It added another 5.8 domestically this weekend. I think with the help of The Lion King, maybe some double features, because we know that Dumbo got some double features when Aladdin came out. We'll probably see that again with The Lion King for Aladdin. I think that 100% in the end, Aladdin's going to pass $1 billion. But yeah, it'll be really neat to see what The Lion King can pull next weekend.
Yeah, it'll definitely be one to watch, because I think it'll be a huge success just because it has so much more going for it because of the original and because of who's involved. But I mean, you never know. It could go the other way, but I really doubt it. So with that being said, we'll move on to the number 3 at the box office, which was Crawl, which opened up to 12 million domestically. I think this movie is the best worst movie I've ever seen. Like it's a B movie premise, and it just lives up to that. It doesn't really try to be anything it's not. It like the people behind the movie, Alexandre Aja, and Sam Raimi, like, you can tell they know what people are there for. You just want to see crocodiles eat people, alligators eat people, and that's what you get.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Collin, you shared this review with us earlier this week, which it perfectly summed it up, where it was something to the effect of, you wanted to see alligators attack the shit out of people, and this movie has alligators attacking the shit out of people. Like, I can't imagine anyone going to this movie and being pissed off, because it's literally exactly what they market. Like, it's just people trapped in alligators, just angry alligators everywhere. That's literally the entire movie, and it's only like 85 minutes long. So, this movie did okay in its opening weekend. It made like 16 million worldwide. So, off a $13.5 million budget, which is fine. I'm sure this movie will probably definitely double or maybe even triple its budget, which is good for Paramount. But I just foresee this movie just being like a really solid cable watch. People will rent it and be like, well, I just kind of wanted to see alligators just fuck shit up, and that's exactly what it is. So there's definitely an audience for this movie, and it's gonna do fine in a couple weeks, however long it is in theaters.
So up here, kind of just living in a little outside of Toronto up here, I'm not very connected to hurricanes. It's not something that affects me or people here people hear that often, but when I first saw the promotional footage and the commercials, the trailers, I thought maybe this thing would actually have a decent market, just because I know some of these things can be very tragic, and it isn't. Not going to joke about anything like that, but I thought that maybe just because hurricanes and tropical storms have been kind of prevalent these last few years, that I think this was kind of a decent gimmick to pull. But I think I was proven wrong. The movie did fine, but it didn't really blow up. I thought it would do a little bit better. We'll see how it does week to week, though.
I think this will be a good streaming movie, just because it is like it's something you don't really need to get too engaged with. Like you're there for alligators attacking people. Like people get dismembered, people get attacked, like all throughout. It's a good movie to just like chill out at home, have on in the background, and just enjoy. Like there's nothing to really take away from it. You just watch people get terrorized by alligators for 2 hours, or not even 2 hours, hour and a half, and like that's it. That's all you need from it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and back to Brennan's point, I think they definitely wanted this movie. I mean, obviously they wanted to make as much money as possible, but I think they were really hoping for a certain type of like don't breathe, break out, small movie, like small contained claustrophobic movie, because the movie cost nothing and it was a crazy hit back when it came out in like 2016, I think. And the marketing was like, oh, from the producer of Don't Breathe and like all this stuff, and Sam Raimi, they had his name plastered all over. So they're really trying to get into that audience. But yeah, it's 16 million worldwide. It's kind of having a slow release internationally. It's going to actually, like, one of its last markets is Brazil, and it's not even going to get there until September, late September. So this movie will slowly reach out to people, and I'm sure it's not going to make a ton, but this is the good thing with making smaller budget movies, where you really don't have to make crazy hits to recoup your money. So I mean, yeah, it's not great to start, but it's a fun, silly movie where people just get ripped apart, and it's great. It's a great functional movie that I can't imagine anyone being too angry about seeing.
Yeah, it's hard not to enjoy. Like,
Oh, like if you go in with the right expectations, like it's just like, yeah, it's exactly what it is. People are gruesomely injured and they're trying to figure out how to stop all these alligators, and it's just kind of fun in that way. And the tension's solid, it's fully functional, and like I don't really care when they stop everything to have a father-daughter moment, but like, whatever. The movie's less than 90 minutes. It zips along. It plays "See Ya, Alligator" in its closing credits. It knows what it is. It's here to be schlocky fun, and so if you're into that, you're gonna probably do fine with this movie.
yeah, so that is the opening weekend of Crawl, and we'll move into Stuber, which is actually under the Disney Fox merger. This is Disney's first R-rated movie in, I think, 6 years, somewhere around that timeline. But it opened up to 8 million domestic. Not necessarily a huge opening, especially when you consider it's got Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista as its leads. They're pretty popular in the comedy and movie world. So it's not starting off very strong. But as far as how it is as a movie, I know you guys saw it this weekend. I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, it's actually it got kind of weird reviews. People either kind of really were not for it, or were like, yeah, this movie's great and it's a hidden gem. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I think this movie's fine. It's really funny. I think Batista and Nanjiani are great together, and I'd love to see them team up for more movies because they're just really funny together. Movie around them isn't amazing, but they're kind of funny enough to kind of power you through the entire time. But yeah, this is a weird one. I can't imagine. Is this like the worst titled movie we've had this year? What the fuck is Stuber? Like, I get his name is Stu and he drives an Uber, but like you didn't put that in any of the marketing. Like, people just kind of saw that title and were like, what the hell is this movie? I think this is probably the worst marketed movie of this year, because there's a subplot in this movie where Dave Bautista just like had LASIK surgery, so he's like basically blind the whole movie, and like you would have no idea if you if you watch the trailer. Like, this, it's just weird. Like, I feel like Disney didn't know what to do with it. with it being one of their first R-rated movies in a while. It's just oddly marketed, decent movie. It's an oddity. It's a weird one.
Yeah, you know what? I had fun with this movie. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. I don't think it's a phenomenal film, but I think it was a really good time. I had fun with it. Nanjiani and Batista, as you said, great chemistry throughout the film. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of odd marketing. And Stuber, yeah, I didn't really. Even when I went up to the ticket booth to get the ticket, I didn't really know how to pronounce it when I was telling the guy. And he agreed. He said, "Yeah, I don't know either." But you know what? This is a fun film. I thought it was all right, and for a comedy, I mean, it's opening up to mediocre numbers. $8 million this week, and I'm sure it didn't cost a ton to make. But it looked like they had a lot of fun, kind of making this movie. Batista and Nanjiani, it looked like they had a lot of fun together. So, I mean, it's a fine film for sure.
Yeah, it only cost $16 million to make, so like this $8 million mark and domestically isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, obviously you want more, but I mean, you don't have to recoup much, and yeah, it is. Yeah, this is weird. This movie was so poorly marketed. I feel like it just like I wonder if this one will pick up steam from word of mouth, because that's really the only way. Because it's just I keep rapping on it. This movie was awfully marketed. I just think this is just such a misfire. I think there's definitely an audience for this kind of thing. So yeah. Not great start, but it's fine. Like we said, $16 million budget. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be in worse shape. So we'll move on from that to yesterday, which has continued to have these pretty solid legs underneath it. It actually opened in about 141 more theaters this week, so I'm not sure what territory that opened in, but it did keep it around a 32.9% drop at 6.75 million. Like this movie is just pulling in a decent amount of money every weekend. It's up to about 80.5 million worldwide, and it's been just a nice little hit.
Yeah, I finally saw this movie. It's taken a while. I don't know, one of the movies I just missed, and you can really see why this movie has had smaller week to week drops, because just every time this movie blasts a Beatles song, like just like as loud as possible, you just sit there in the theater and you're like, holy shit, the Beatles are awesome and this is really cool. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's nowhere near the success that Bohemian Rhapsody was, but it's kind of successful in that same way, where it's just every so often you'll just hear a really popular song blared in like Wembley Stadium or something like that, and you're just like, holy shit, this is really, really cool. And it has great moments like that. So yeah, it's made a cozy little profit. It's $26 million budget. It's broken 80 worldwide. I'm sure Universal has probably expected this movie to do a little more than that, given its really high concept premise. It's probably one of the best premises for a movie like in the last few years. But yeah, it's doing okay. You can't really complain.
Yeah, you know, I actually was pretty excited for this film, just because you know, it wasn't one that blew me away, the marketing material or the trailers, but I thought it actually had a pretty neat premise, and I think there's a lot more in here than just. I mean, I don't know if anyone listening wants to go check this thing out. I'm not going to go in too deep with what the film is all about, besides what's shown, but I think there's a little bit more in here in terms of kind of it's not just about everyone forgets what the Beatles were. I think there's a little bit more in there, so I think it's kind of neat. I think that it had potential to do a little bit more with that, but no, it's a really enjoyable movie. I just checked it out too. Finally got to see it just a few days ago, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think that the two leads, they're really nice together. The film's fine. It's really good, and it is kind of one of those movies that I think word of mouth would help it. I like it. I would tell someone if they're looking for a movie to see, go see it, because I think it's a good movie. It's a fun movie, and I think it was a good time.
Yeah, like it's kind of like Crawl. Like there's not like there are obviously some flaws in it, but there's not just a ton to complain about. Like it's a perfectly pleasant movie. I mean, nobody gets dismembered by alligators, but you do get your emotions dismembered by the Beatles songs. So it's kind of the same effect.
I think it's the first time in the history of ever that someone's compared the Beatles to flesh-eating gators. So good on you. That was really good.
I try I try to be groundbreaking with my metaphors. So
Yeah, that one hit
it's
home for me. That was really good.
yeah, I mean, overall, it just hasn't been a very divisive or really exciting, shocking weekend at the box office. Everything is kind of playing out pretty predictably. We've got Lion King coming up next week. That'll be massive, probably. We've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the week after that. And then the summer box office will really start to slow down from there. And we'll just kind of drop until we get to some of the horror releases and then into the winter box office season. So it's weird. Like we're pretty late in the summer box office already, especially considering, it kind of started in April. But we're kind of nearing the end of it now and everything's just kind of slowing down.
Yeah, you forgot to mention
it's sad.
The Citizen Kane of you forgot to mention the Citizen Kane of action movies coming out, Hobbs and Shaw, which I'm sure is going to be the greatest stupid movie ever made.
I completely forgot about that.
That movie looks so stupid and I can't wait. But
What's the ceiling, do you think?
It's going to be Crawl, but with guns and cars.
What do you
And
guys think the
muscles.
ceiling is for that film in terms of opening weekend numbers? Because we know that the Fast and Furious franchise has just become massive kind of these last 6, 7, 8 years, especially since Fast 5. This franchise has just blown up. Even the last two movies, especially, just insane. How do you think their first ever spin-off is going to do?
I go ahead, Colin.
Well, like the last one, The Fate of the Furious, like nobody really liked that movie, but it made just a shitload of money. Like it made ridiculous amounts of money, especially coming off of Furious 7. And I think Hobbs and Shaw like really takes everything that the Fast of the Furious has become and is like, we're giving you just the parts you're here for. And I think this is easily going to be a $1 billion movie. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this outgrossed all of them. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the new #1 Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I hate all the Fast and Furious movies with a passion. Like, I mean, it's tough because I like parts of them like a lot. Like, there's some moments in Fate of the Furious where it's like Jason Statham has a baby Bjorn on and he's shooting people in a plane, and I'm like, this is like the greatest thing ever. and then I see Vin Diesel try to act while Charlize Theron whispers and shoots his kid or his mom or whatever the fuck happened in that movie. And I'm just like, I just don't need this in my life. So when I saw Hobbs and Shaw, it's just like that. This just looks like it's trimming all the fat off, and it's just going to be absurd, unself-aware, toxic masculinity. It's going to be incredible. I like Collin. I see this movie doing really well. I'm not really sure about its opening weekend, but I do know it's actually a really smart time for it to come out because it's really going to have no competition for weeks and weeks on end. Like, it's first week of August, and after that, it's just like a bunch of smaller movies and maybe other movies that studios didn't have a lot of faith in. So I just kind of see it just chilling at #1 for a while and just making a ton of money that way. So yeah.
It'll definitely own the box office of August. Looking at kind of the Fast and Furious franchise, though, I don't know. I mean, Furious 7 is kind of the highest grossing one. It is the highest grossing Fast and Furious film overall, but domestically, even it's head and shoulders above the rest. So I don't know if this film can kind of get back to those heights, but overseas, these movies just kill it.
Yeah, The Rock is also just huge in China for whatever reason. So it's kind of the reason that Skyscraper wasn't a huge bomb or any of his other movies, because they just markets really well over there. I don't really know what the reason is behind that, but that's just what it is. So I think this movie, like, we always talk about the summer season kind of dragging. I feel like we talk about that every year, where it's just, this summer season wasn't as great as it was. But I feel like that and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think, are really gonna ignite it in whatever way they can. I think because it has been it's been sleepy so far when you look at it in total.
Well,
I just want to ask
also
you.
got.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, we've also got a much busier off season than you would normally have. I mean, like, you look at just Marvel alone. Like, Marvel turned February last year and March this year into like a movie with $1 billion month. and we have like a lot more of those kind of off-season blockbusters that are coming out that are just kind of spread throughout, so they're not all choked up in the summer as much anymore. And so I think we'll see a lot more kind of like steady longevity at the box office, just coming out of the summer and out of like all the sleepiness. We've still got some pretty big movies coming up.
Yeah, and kind of one of the biggest ones next weekend, The Lion King. I just wanted to get a number out of you guys. What's the prediction for you guys opening weekend domestically for The Lion King?
Shoosh. That's a tough one. I don't know. I would have said something crazy if you would have asked me like a week or two ago, but like it's kind of sitting around like a little below 60% Rotten Tomatoes, which I mean a lot of people are probably noticing that, and I wonder if it's going to be the same thing as Aladdin, where it opens around like 90 or like 100, and then it kind of just people, and you get word of whatever word of mouth is from there. People go to the theaters because I mean it's got such a big cast, but I feel like there's a little bit of some kind of boredom with these live action movies. Maybe that's just me. I'm trying to spin something, but I don't know. This movie could do a number of things. If I had to guess, maybe like I don't know, like 125, maybe.
Okay.
I have no idea. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I've already bought my ticket, so I guarantee you it's made at least $14. Well, not really, because I used my little A-list thing, and I have no idea how much money they actually made. But I guarantee you it's at least made $5. But on top of that, I don't know. I just think it has like so much going for it because of like what it's coming from, that I think it'll be, if not matching Aladdin at least, I think it'll be pretty close. I mean, you just have like you have the legacy of the first Lion King, like you said, Nick. You have like all these talented people that are behind it in the cast. Like you have Jon Favreau, who's pretty popular right now. But I mean, he put out The Jungle Book 3 years ago, and that was pretty close to $1 billion. And I mean, nobody ever really talked about that movie, and it still got close to $1 billion. The Lion King has been a hot topic since it was announced. I really expect it to go over $1 billion. I mean, I just think there's too much hype around it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree there too. It's the Lion King, so I think it's just gonna get a lot of coverage just from that alone, and that's that's the reason why Disney does all this stuff, where they just scoop up whatever they have. Like we have another Maleficent movie coming out this October, and like no one wanted the first one, so like they're just gonna keep doing it because it's just such a great branding opportunity. Like it's the Lion King, like everyone loves that. Everyone loves the first movie, and if you don't, like, you kind of suck, because it's just like, why I hate that movie.
Right.
It's a weird hill to die on. So I don't expect this movie to do poorly at all. It's just gonna, I think it just, those reviews probably will probably keep the opening weekend a little tame, if I had to guess.
For me personally, so you got 125 opening weekend. I think that the reviews will do nearly nothing. I think that we all expect.
Mhm.
I think that we all expected this to kind of be a beat for beat kind of remake. And I think that what we're seeing in the reviews is terrific visual effects. We knew that. I don't know. I think that this movie, if you were to ask me a month ago, I probably would have said 160. Today, I'm gonna go 140. And that's not just because the movie in general. That's just kind of basing this whole summer around my prediction here. I think that the movie's still going to be a massive hit just because it is The Lion King. I mean, Aladdin turned 90 million. It had the Memorial Day weekend. But I think The Lion King is just too big of a name not to do well. I think 140 is the number I'm going to go with. I wouldn't be surprised though if it was 125. I mean, I could see that happening. We see the Sunday numbers come in, and it's around 125. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw 150. So I'm going to go with a 140, and I think it's going to be $1 billion hit as well.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about all these reviews is that, and you see this with all the Disney movies, they're like, oh, well, this is basically just the original. It just looks nicer and newer. and like critics are saying, "Oh, this is what's going to be what turns people off." But I feel like that's the only thing people really want when they go to see these, and so I feel like the reviews don't really impact us the way we've kind of seen them impact other stuff like Men in Black or Dark Phoenix or Hellboy this year, because like people don't want anything better or worse than the original. They just want the original but newer, and and that's all Disney's really offering. And I mean, it's succeeded so far.
When you look at just real quick, when you look at the live action remakes, the only ones that have really seen good reviews from critics are the Cinderella from 2015 and the Jungle Book. The Jungle Book received great reception. All the other ones are kind of middle of the road, 50 to 60%, maybe into the high 60s on Rotten Tomatoes. Like all these films are kind of mediocrely reviewed, but they all seem to do great. And The Lion King, I think, is the biggest property of anything they've put out. Beauty and the Beast, that's up there. That movie did incredible, the live action movie. But I think that I would argue that The Lion King is the most known animated property in the history of film. I mean, I guess you could say good old Mickey Mouse, but that's not one single movie. Mickey Mouse is a brand of different things. I think the Lion King of 1990 is arguably, I'm pretty sure, it's 1994. I'm pretty sure. I don't want to be wrong on that. But I think that film is one that is probably the most known animated movie in history. That's just my guess. That's just how I see things. There could be something that's more known. I think the original Snow White is also a pretty big movie. But I just think on that alone, this film's gonna do a lot. It's gonna be big.
Yeah, it's a good point that Collin made, where the thing I immediately thought of was Dumbo earlier this year, which is like the only one of these movies not to be crazy successful, and that was probably the most wildly different from the original, where it was basically like a sequel on top of the original movie, and people were just like, "What the fuck is this?" hashtag not my Dumbo. It's just it's a bit cynical to think of it that way, but people just really do kind of want to see this movie again. And that's kind of why, like, Aladdin has killed financially, and the reviews weren't great, and I didn't really love it, but that doesn't really matter to a lot of people. They just kind of want to go see this movie. So, it's gonna do well. So it's just a matter of how well is, I guess, that's the way you'd say that. But yeah, it's gonna do great.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it doesn't, we've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the next week, so like all will be well within a week after that. So I'm not too worried.
Yeah, and there's a couple of great little indie movies coming out as well. There's one that opened this week, The Farewell from A24, which has the current record, or I guess is the current leader for highest per theater average this year. It beat Endgame, which is kind of crazy to think about. It made 87,000 in 4 theaters, it's an Aquafina movie, which premiered at Sundance this year, which has gotten crazy good reviews, and I'm really excited to see that one. That movie's going to be expanding this week as well. And then we have the other one I'm really looking forward to, which is, I think it's one of the best trailers I've seen in a really long time, is The Art of Self-Defense. It's a Jesse Eisenberg movie. Kind of looks like a really fun takedown of toxic masculinity. It's a karate movie. It looks hilarious, and I can't wait to see that. And that movie's also expanding too. So, for all the hipsters out there that don't want to see Lion King, I got your back.
Yeah, so that kind of sums it up. I mean, next week we'll be here with Lion King, and we've actually got like some pretty high profile 3 weeks in a row, because we've got Lion King, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, then Hobbs and Shaw. So we should have a little bit more of an exciting box office the next few weeks going forward. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the MovieBabble Podcast, and join us next week as we talk about the opening weekend for The Lion King. And as always, you can check us out online at MovieBabbleReviews.com.